and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Poker Face Season 2, Episode 5. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Okay, so I had to re-record the intro to this, obviously a couple days later, because it took me that long to realize, oh wait, this isn't episode 2, which I thought it was. This was episode 5 of season 2 of Poker Face. I don't know how, somehow, I watched episode 1 of season 2 and somehow magically skipped to episode 5. So I'm going to have to go back and watch episodes 2, 3, and 4. The nature of the show, it shouldn't be too much of an issue because the show's so episodical. But it could also be like there might have been pertinent stuff in 2, 3, and 4 that carried over. Like I'm starting to think like, you don't think that Steve Buscemi stuff might have been something from previous episodes? Because I was like, that seems so random out of nowhere. So if I'm talking about that later on in the recording, like, oh, that's kind of wild. It's because I missed episodes 2, 3, and 4. So yeah, I'm a big dumb old idiot. So, but yeah, for the most part, I'm just going to leave the recording as is. I'm not going to go through the trouble of re-recording because I think it's fine for the most part. So I just, like I said, I'm just re-recording this intro to add that context. I'll probably end up talking about it in some of the other episodes if some stuff that was in this episode ends up being pertinent in the other. So, but yeah, that's enough about hearing from future me. Let's listen to past me talk about episode 5. You actually feel really bad for Russ, aka Rocket, played by Simon Rex. I was like, hey, so Simon Rex's name, Steve Buscemi's name, Carol Kane. Thought that was interesting. The actor who plays Skip, I don't know if that's Gil, was it Birmingham? I don't know if that's him, because I'm the actor who plays Skip. I'm like, I've seen that actor in like a lot of stuff. I just can't like place off the top of my head what I specifically remember him from. But either way, didn't just know that. I actually felt bad for Russ because he's like, yeah, he's an older guy. He had the gift, you know. He had the 100 mile per hour, over 100 mile per hour, you know, fastball, and he's kind of like a local town legend, especially because this particular baseball team is kind of something that the whole town rallies behind. So him in particular, they rally behind, but now he can't even get above like 90, as he says, and he's just losing more and more as he's getting older, and just they're not sure what it is. They find out, they talk about it later on, it's not physical, it's psychological. It's something he got in his own head about. Now he just can't do it. Maybe kind of caved under the pressure. We don't really get into that too much, but so many people like put a lot on him, you know, because like once again they're waiting for him to, you know, got one more, you know, 100 mile per hour like fastball in him, but the team they're on like a record-setting losing streak, because even later on they get interviews. So it's like, if you lose one more time, like you will have like the most losses consecutively in minor league baseball or whatever. And it's like, yeah, so there's an accomplishment in that, which obviously it's a very backhanded compliment. I mean, that's actually me making that comment of, oh, it's kind of an accomplishment in its own right, but it's like that's not something necessarily proud of. But yeah, it sucks because it's like, hey, your best days are behind you, especially later on, like the juxtaposition really, and I'll talk about it here. Him having that conversation with like Charlie, I thought was interesting. The whole like gift, like his gift, he enjoyed it. And because, you know, they had the conversation about baseball. She's like, it's just a game. She's like, I'm sorry, I'm sure you're just going to say like, it's not a game. He's like, no, it actually is a game. But for him, it's like, it was something I was really good at. You know, it might have just been a game where I'm throwing a ball really fast at a dude with a stick, but it was still something I was good at. And I had this gift. And it's interesting that he's talking to Charlie, who also has a gift, but we know her gift kind of acts as a curse too. We've never really reveled too much in her gift being a curse, but obviously it makes your life a living hell because, you know, we have dived into the downside of like, right, you're constantly, when people on a daily basis tell lies, insignificant lies, and someone who can tell they're lying, it's like, that's got to be like just a migraine inducing. But then also it's like, you know, we touched on it a little bit in the season 1 finale. Whatever went down with her like always telling the truth and being able to kind of see the truth, like it caused issues in her family, and it is part of the reason why her sister resents her. So there is the massive downside to it. So, but I thought that was an interesting conversation they had, because like Charlie understands, like, you know, having a gift, and she used it because he was like, yeah, being able to take your gift and use it, and she's been using it for good. So there is something like, yeah, there might be a downside to it, but the positives might kind of outweigh the good. I mean, because of her gift, she was able to get justice for her best friend Natalie in a lot of ways. You know, well, no, in the long, I was about to say in the long run, she did because Cliff went down for Natalie and Jerry's death. Once again, we're not too concerned about Jerry, but it's more so about Natalie. But still, but either way, the main crux of the episode revolves around Russ. You know, it's like, right, he's being let go of the team. You know, Carol Kane's character, was it Lucille? I believe it's her grandfather is like his main contribution to the town is like there's a very specific like velvety canned cheese or something he made. So I don't know if it's supposed to be like her family's extremely well off, because she kind of talks about like, I guess it's a minor like local like thing, but it's not like it's not like a massive empire, because she doesn't seem like she's well off, because she doesn't have enough money to like take care of the team and keep certain people on the staff, or even fix up, was it Rambo, the like the pitching machine. So that's why I'm like, I guess it's like you're kind of a local enterprise, but probably over the years you've waned, because it's probably like only a local city thing that this canned cheese. I mean, I even love we're constantly cutting back to the lady reporting, the announcer in the I don't know what that's called because I'm not a sports dude. The commentary box, I guess is what you'd call it, where she's just constantly like, this cheese is so good. She's like, honestly, I'm not even able to see colors anymore. If anyone else is kind of not being able to feel their right arm, probably should come up here and, you know, talk to me. She's like, if there's any doctors in the stands, you should probably come up and check on me. I just love that. We keep cutting back to her, like, eating more and more until she had to finally stop herself, because she was just like, yeah, I'm in a bad spot just guzzling down this cheese, because she's putting on nachos and stuff. But still. So I thought that was so fascinating. But anyway, like circling back to it, like I was saying, Russ is losing his position, and he's kind of fine with it initially, because he's like, yo, like at the end of the day, I'm not what I was before. And, you know, he actually says like, yo, it's fair. Like if I could still get like 100 mile per hour fastball, then we'd be having a different conversation, but I can't, like, so I kind of have to accept it as is. The team is on the losing streak. So they run into a guy who's like, hey, this is all on you. This is for you guys. It's on the house, because I actually made a good chunk of money betting against you guys. So good luck. It's like, well, you didn't have to tell us that, but that incites the idea in Russ's head of like, well, people are making money off our losses. Why don't we do the same? And so they pull all their money together to try and make some money off the back end with the deals. And they were initially saying, let's put in like 100K. We don't know if that's what they put in totality. I think, and the end result was like 3.1 mil. It was like the end result when it was all said and done. But yeah, they just had to keep losing. And it wasn't really for the rest of the team. It was only for like these five, because they are like the closest with each other. So, and so yeah, they enact their plan. They were already going to lose. You'd think you'd put up more of a like show. I guess it makes sense, because it's like only 5 of them were in on this. The rest of the team was perfectly trying to do their, because there's one match where it was like double score, like it was like maybe like 14-0. Another one might have been like 11-1. There was even one that was like that. It might even been like 14-5 or something like that. So I was like, oh wow, like you would assume you'd want to try and make all those like, because if you're sucking so badly, people are going to start noticing you're throwing. But it's like, well, your record's already abysmal, so what's even more of an abysmal record on top of it? So no one would, I mean, there's not that many people in the stands cheering or going to notice like you're throwing things, so no one really cares enough. So I guess that's why you don't put in the effort to make it seem like there's more going on there. That try and at least feign like you're really trying. But the problem is, a new baseball player got brought on to like be the pitcher, and his name is Felix. He actually looks up to Russ. The kid's actually really good. Well, we actually don't know what he's fully capable of on his own, because one of the guys drugged him and laced his kind of, what was it, kind of dipping gum or whatever. His gum with acid. but then like it turns out it makes him a rock star, and so he kind of was doing a no hit or run, and even like the umpire, not the umpire, one of the guys on the team had to be like, yo, next time that hit comes, do a bunt. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? He's like, just do a bunt. And he does it, and they scramble and make it. So, oh my God, the guy, yeah, he got the home run. So, oh yeah, we continuously lost. We lost again. But the guys celebrate because like, yeah, we were on top of the world. We made all this money. It all worked out for us. But we have Carl being the continuous screw up throughout this whole thing. Just every time it's like, damn it, Carl. Jesus, Carl. Where it's like, it wasn't Carl, but it was the other dude, the dude who actually laced his gum with acid, ended up not taking the gum back. So Russ had to go find it, but then he ends up running into Felix, who reveals like, oh, I know what you did. It's like, wait, how do you even know? Oh, it's because Carl used my notebook that I use, and he was trying to do calculations. He literally put down how much money you guys had bet into all this and stuff, so he figured it all out. And it's just like, I was about to say how he figured out the gum situation, but I think it's because of Charlie that he ended up, because once again, my thing was like, I'm wondering where Charlie, it's always the question of how is Charlie going to pop up in this, but we'll get to that in a second. It's actually interesting. I kind of, like, once again, you do feel bad for Russ, because he's one of those sympathetic, like, killers in the situation. Like, there's been some, it's like some you felt more sympathetic for than others. I personally feel like he's the most sympathetic killer we've had so far, at least off the top of my head. And it doesn't help that Felix is being like, cool. Like, because he's like, yeah, I'm giving up this whole baseball thing because his third eye was open and he's all about, like, serving God now. But he's like, yeah, to do all what I need to do and leave and go where I want to go, I'm going to need $3 million from you. And it's like, okay, dude, you can at least have half of it. But he's like, no, we're not doing that. You're going to give me the $3 million, or I'm going to expose you for what you did. Not only did you drug me, but it's also, you guys are players. You're not allowed to make these bets, so it all goes down the drain. So it's kind of like, you're like, oh, it kind of sucks that Felix did what he did. To be fair, he wasn't in his right mind. If he was in his right mind, would he have done that? But it's like, yeah, who knows? It's also, I mean, you can make the argument it's Russ's fault that things came to this point. Like, if you had done a better job of not sucking as much, but there's not much you could have done, it's because of your poor performance, like, continuously. Like, if you had done maybe better, he wouldn't have felt, the team manager or whatever wouldn't have felt the need, or team owner or team manager wouldn't have felt the need to bring in Felix in the first place. So, and y'all were so desperate to make sure that he didn't play that it's like, yeah, it all kind of spiraled. Once again, Charlie played our own role in it, but we'll get to it in a second. But yeah, I kind of thought it was shitty of Felix to blackmail him. Once again, we've seen that too many times in the show where it's just like, right, you know, a criminal activity thing's going on, but you're like, I'm going to take advantage of this and get paid on my own. But it's also like, you always have to be careful with the people you blackmail, because who's to say they won't just screw you? But he's like, yeah, I got this evidence. And then he kind of chastises, you know, I was about to call him just by his real last name, but chastising Russ by being like who you were and like all the talent you had, and you let it go to waste. It's like, well, he kind of lost the spark, so it's just kind of messed up. And the irony is he gets back his fastball by murdering Felix with it. He's almost like, I mean, his immediate thing was he looked at his end like, oh my God, I got my 100 miles per hour back. But he was like, oh shit. And so he ended up killing Felix. He stages it like it was, I mean, he was about to call 911, but it's like, screw that. Stages it like Rambo, you know, the machine, as we find out, can randomly spit out balls and hit anywhere. So it's like, okay, making it seem like it was turned up the max and it's what hit and killed Felix. So we rewind and find out about how Charlie got to where she is. She was actually working like, I think she was making a correlation with because she was like, yeah, like binging on The Office while she was kind of basically in an office job, even though she was the only one, because it was the whole thing of, yeah, basically a lot of this operation is work from home, but just so they can keep their insurance and the building as is, they need at least one person working in it, and that's Charlie. And she has to take care of the printing machine, and it's just every time there's another thing, and her just being like, damn it, at this point I'm invested in making sure this machine works. So she's on the phone with like Steve Buscemi, which I thought was so interesting. Well, I was like, I think the guy she was talking to was because his name pops up in the beginning credits, but it's like as a certain like name, and I think that's the same person she was talking to on the phone, if I'm not mistaken. Which I was like, why would that's so interesting? If that is, not unless his voice is one of those cartoon characters later on. I don't think he was, but I could be mistaken. But I was like, oh, interesting. Why would you just? It's Steve Buscemi. Maybe it's just like right, you couldn't get him in the episode just because maybe like scheduling, and so you just got his voice. But part of me almost feels like, well, you kind of did the same thing with like Ron Perlman and Rio Perlman, so it's most likely a chance to, if he's not like a, if it is the same guy that she was talking to on the phone initially, I'm like, could it be that thing of he pops up later on in person, so we could see him in a different episode, or maybe he, like I said, he was one of those cartoon voices, and I just was stupid because, like I said, the name that popped up, I don't remember it, but I feel like that's the same name of the person she was on the phone with when she was trying to figure out about the printer. He's the one that gave her the whole advice about like, right, you always have to worry about like it's not just the smack you see coming, it's the smack after the smack. So what happens? She smacks the printer, got it working again, and immediately gets hit by a baseball coming through the window. Gets hired on as a ball girl, which I love that she basically, to ease her own job, like, because her job is also to like gather up the balls like when they go foul and stuff like that. But apparently, I guess she's splitting some of whatever income she's getting with like a girl, and she's like, hey, deputy ball girl. And so it's like, we saw her one time, but it's like knowing like, so that's how Charlie's like, work smarter, not harder type of situation. So. But either way, when it was all said and done, we see Charlie spending her time with the group, obviously learning about Rex, actually kind of liking him and feeling bad when she found out, like, oh, he's about to get kicked off the team, and that whole conversation I brought up earlier about that conversation about gifts and stuff. And so she's late at night cleaning up, and she runs into Felix. In fact, she's the one that kind of brought some stuff up to Felix about money and stuff like that, even insinuating the whole like, oh, like what drugs are you on? He's like, I don't do that, I'm clean. And she's like, okay, whatever, officer. So you're like, well, at the time she recognized he wasn't lying about that, but it's like, well, I can clearly tell you were high as a kite. Literally everyone could, and no one just bothered to ask, because they're like, I don't care, whatever you need, whatever it takes to get you there, it's perfectly fine. So, but yeah, like I said, he was all about like God, blah 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 this and blah 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 that, and it's like, yo, I'm not going to be sticking around. And so, but it's like, right, you need money to do that, and so that's what kind of really inspired him the moment he figured it all out, why he was planning on blackmailing Russ. And the question is like, if Charlie hadn't said what she had said, like none of those ideas, would they have been inside of Felix's head to begin with? I don't know. Like I said, it's Felix didn't deserve to die and stuff like that. Like I said, he wasn't in his right mind, and even if he did say the things that he said, it still didn't give Russ the right to murder him and make it seem like I set it up to be an accident. But before we even get to that, Charlie has her like, yo, oh my, I guess coming to God or Jesus moment where she's tripping balls now because she ate some of the gum, and now like she goes full Black Noir from The Boys, specifically the TV show. Like, if you spoilers, Black Noir would see like cartoon characters and stuff. That was kind of, I think, his way to gonna process all that his situation is what it is. So it kind of reminded me of that. She's seeing cartoon stuff, and then like, what's his name, Haram, who is like Lucille's like I said, I think that's her grandfather. But it wasn't until like when he popped up, first he pops up as a cartoon, but when then we see the real person, I'm like, I was looking, I was like, is that fucking BJ Novak? And lo and behold, it is. I was like, that's interesting, because she also referenced The Office. He was in The Office. I don't know if he was a writer on The Office, because I know he's like an actor and a writer, so I don't know if he wrote. Because I don't think he was like, I think he was with The Office like early on, but I don't think he was there in like later seasons and stuff. But like he might have still been a writer on it. I don't know, but I do know he was associated with The Office. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. and he's telling Charlie like, oh my god, like how important like this stadium is, and it's like we need to keep the team here because this is something this town rallies behind. It kind of acts as the heart of this town, so you need to, kind of like the cliche like sports story of, oh, we got to save this rec center type of thing. It's kind of giving that vibe, and it's up to Charlie to kind of save baseball. It's up to her to save the game, and then passes out after her like high acid like trip, and then immediately it's like, oh, the murder. Well, Felix died, and sadly, Lucille will be caught up in like, oh god, what was it they called it? She would be held responsible on a legal standpoint for like an accidental death because it was kind of her responsibility because she didn't replace the machine and she knew she should have. So I forgot the exact legal term for it, but they even said it in an episode. But Charlie's like, no, I'm gonna prove you're innocent, because she's like, there's something going on here, because obviously she's like, his gum was laced, so someone was trying to mess with him. She went to Skip, and Skip's like, yeah, I knew he was high as a ball, but it's fine. We all kind of knew he was high. And I also love this like little background thing with Skip, because it turns out he's in an open marriage, and it's just he's reading a book about how to deal with an open marriage. I even love when it's like that rally at the end of the episode. He's like, yeah, let's rally around Skip. I mean, not Skip, rally around Russ. Yeah, let's rally and do this for Felix. Yeah, let's do this for monogamy. And then everyone's like, huh? I think you even see Carl being like, yeah. It's just like, I love that you threw that in there. And he's looking around like, is anybody going to cheer for me? All right, that was a more selfish thing of like, yeah, let's cheer for pure monogamy. But either way, I love that. Just being this like recurring bit throughout the episode that we just don't get to explore, but it's just this background bit I love. Obviously, Charlie ends up confronting Carl, and she ends up immediately finding out the truth, because like, well, Carl was lying about how he got the money because he's got like a massive gold grill, but the problem is another one of the members that was a part of this whole like bet situation comes in, look like with a fur coat and shades and stuff, looking fly. So you're like, cool, oh, you guys like lied and manipulated the situation. And she's like, oh, you guys drugged him. And Carl has no choice but to admit, because it's like, right, they did this. Yes, it's sucky and shady, but they didn't have anything to do with Felix's death. It was like, yeah, that was a freak accident. So because they tried to test his gum, but it wasn't Russ had already swapped it out, so it came back as just normal gum. Because initially they weren't expecting foul play. She knew like he was high, so she's like, well, if he was high when it happened, the onus on like the whole situation doesn't fall as much on Lucille, so it kind of comes back on it being his on Felix. But then you find out like, oh, like the gum came back normal. Then she's like, okay, something else is going on here, something's amiss. And she worked with one of the people that works there. I don't know if he was like the coach or whatever, but it turns out he's a former cop. And they ended up getting an autopsy report. There was no drugs found, but what was found though is that he was most likely killed by the baseball had to be going 100 miles per hour, but Rambo can't go that fast. In fact, Charlie tested it herself, and it's like, who on this team can hit 100? Because she's like, well, Russ, I know you can't. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. And he's able to kind of skirt around it, but then like he's like, yeah, my fastball days are behind me. And in that moment, Charlie's like, bullshit. He's like, yeah, I wish it was. So she's like, okay, so you can in fact throw the ball 100 miles per hour. So she eventually confronts him about it, and he denies it, still without her giving away her trade secret of, I can tell when you're lying. In fact, she had like got him so riled up, talking shit to him, saying basically what Felix said, and then shows off like, yo, you can do it. So I know that you were the one responsible. It's like, you killed Felix, because it's like she besmirched his name by besmirching Russ's name by being like, yo, you were that guy, and here you are stooping down to this low, making deals like this, betting against yourself. Like, how low and shady is that, just to piss him off? But he's like, right, she doesn't have any concrete evidence against him. There's nothing she can really do to prove it. So on the day of the game, she's just nearby, because she taunts him by being like, hey, there's a scout out there. It's like, I probably shouldn't even said anything. But initially, he's just going to lose the game. But the problem is, he saw someone in the crowd looking at him, measuring his speed, that he thought it was a scout. And he's just like, you know what? And he's looking at Charlie and just kind of looking at him. And so he shows off. And the guy that was checking him out wasn't a scouter. I was wondering what that was. And I figured they wouldn't be. Wasn't expecting them to be a cop. I was like, that's the angle here. And so keeping the place on lockdown, and Russ knows what this means. He's like, right. Especially because like Charlie leaned into it by being like, everybody come on, rock it. Kind of like playing into his ego. And now it's kind of like, oh man, he's busted. But him and Charlie kind of tip their caps to each other. And he's just kind of like, well, you got me. So it's like, but might as well go out tossing in this case, not swinging. It very much made me think about episode 6, where Ellen Barkin and Tim Meadows' character, like they still put on that performance even though the cops were there to arrest him for Jamila Jamil's character's death and stuff. So it kind of gave me that same energy of like, all right, still this is kind of my moment. It's like, right, might as well go for it. And he does one more pitch, and it's like, as long as you can kind of make this matter in the end, it's like he's going to be arrested and it's going to tarnish his legacy, but at least he was able to have like sadly like 4 more pitches that went over 100. So I don't know, it's just kind of an interesting development. Like I said, I do feel kind of bad for him under the circumstances. Like I said, he feels to be the most sympathetic killer we've had so far. Obviously, it wasn't his intention. He was just so upset, and his backstory, and like he didn't initially start off with anything like super heinous of, I'm going to murder this person to do this thing. Like he had no intention of murder. It's like, I'm just going to get. My initial plan was like, we're going to like fraud this situation by playing terribly and winning the bet, and then it's just like, he didn't plan to, but one of the other guys drugged Felix, but in fact, it made him play even better. But then they had the situation played out the way it is. Like I said, it's just, you feel bad for him to some extent. Once again, it doesn't excuse what he did, ultimately killing Felix and everything, and but not the worst killer we've had so far. Like with his, it's kind of just what I'm saying. So it's just interesting. But yeah, I've run my mouth off long enough. I'm interested to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.